Hi everyone, this is Lori with 3 Keys Astrology, and this is your weekly forecast for March 24th through the end of the month. I did a video for you, the last one recorded, about Pluto and Mars and the complications that entail the end of this month, primarily with temper, with power and control. The biggest events that are happening this week at this time, and my forecasts run normally Saturday to Saturday, are that Pluto ingresses into Aquarius. In the last video, I went through all signs but forgot Sagittarius. Sagittarius, you have a benefit with this ingression. Now, Pluto's going to move on the 24th of March until June 11th at a critical degree. If you saw when I got launched on Astrology's team back in July of 2021, I spoke to you about what the 0 degree means. It is the alpha and the omega of degrees. All of we that have planets at 0 degrees, it's the purest form of this degree. It's got a little bit of flavor of the sign before it, and it's the purest, strongest flavor of the planetary influence. Pluto will be at 0 degrees all through June 11th in Aquarius. He then regresses and goes back into Capricorn. That is why in yesterday's video I talked to you Capricorns, most especially, Cancer next, Aries and Libra, about cleaning up the messes that you've had in your life since 2008. The other big thing that's happening this week is Mars ingresses into Cancer. And this is a very uncomfortable position for Mars. And people that are born with this configuration can be very manipulative because they use their Mars passive aggressively. So these are big deals on top of all of the things I explained to you yesterday. Excuse me, in the weekly forecast from the 18th through the 24th. So this most powerful transit entails huge crisis and potential regarding the deepest parts of your soul and self. I also explained yesterday that in the purification process that is Pluto, it's indeed the crucible of your life, burning off the dross of all desires and defunct, demoralizing parts of our character that happen to be, in psychological terms, our shadow sides. Comment below and tell me if you know what your shadow side is. There's a correlation between your 3 keys and indeed your shadow for sure. And we can talk about that more. It's a pretty interesting subject. So from March 24th till June 11th, we'll see a preview of what our lives are going to look like for the next 2 decades. And it's going to be in the realm of issues that you have where you might be a tyrant or a bully or bossy or controlling. Whether you're doing it consciously or unconsciously is a matter of introspection, because Pluto is a deep and hidden planet. And if you're a 12th house person, you act out your subconscious mind without realizing buried repressions, maybe abuses, and things of the past. And Pluto kind of works this way. He is the ruler of the underworld. I told you that I'm offering readings for us for the next 90 days, where I will meet you on Zoom if you want just a Pluto reading to understand how this ingression is going to affect you and your birth planet Pluto. And that's a half-an-hour session on Zoom with me. That cost is $75. And then I'm also doing a deeper analysis, which is an hour-long meeting with me on Zoom with Black Moon Lilith and Pluto together. These indeed 2 entities are the bride and bridegroom of hell. And this pure 0 degree of Pluto is, there's a misnomer about Pluto's power because it's basically, some astrologers, beginning astrologers, will make the assumption, you'll keep hearing words like rebirth and transformation, and those things are true, but they're not true unless the person, the self and soul, acknowledges those shadow sides to our personalities, to acknowledge where we're depraved, where we're too needy, where we manipulate and control other people, our dark sides. So there can be no great transformation and there can be no great rebirth if you keep sullying yourself in vice and sin. So when Pluto's in dignity in a birth chart, this is a signature of some pretty incredible people. These are the people that help you purge and wash yourself clean of these vices that human nature gets embroiled in. And that is only then and only then will you rise up above sin and vice and all these things that are the realm of the underworld. When I talk about a crucible, I explained to you in last week's video the depths of hell and all the sinners therein. Are the reason hell is fiery is indeed that crucible that is Pluto. It's symbolic. The symbol of Pluto is indeed a tiny sun with a half moon under it and the cross you have to bear in your life. That crucible is you becoming whomever it is that you'll be at any age you are. We're all born with a cross to bear. We astrologers that are Christians can clearly see that in the bones of the chart. And that is in how you conduct yourself and relate to others, what your public reputation is, and how well you serve your family members and your ancestors and the branches of your lineage in your home life. That's the cross you have to bear. That half moon that looks like a crucible has a tiny sun because the sun represents the ego. And in this dilemma that we're all going to encounter at this major ingression, at this moment in time, we've got 4 planetary influences in Aries. The sun in Aries is an infantile self. That's a complex of not thinking of others. And with Jupiter there, it can be aggrandizement, or one that's so full of oneself that he's incapable to see the needs and wants and desires of any other person in a cooperative manner, which is the crux of all relationships. So I want you to think a little bit about this pure energy of Pluto in dignity. It is the signature of the therapist, the psychoanalyst who's an alchemist, digging down deep into the recesses of yourself, which is your ego, your superego, and the id. That also includes your shadow side. And if you're able to be open enough and vulnerable enough to dig up that dirt and admit those things that you're engaging in that are not holy, because the ultimate in the symbol of Pluto, after you bear your cross, we Catholics actually go into a contemplation and meditation and prayer where we wear a cross on our back like Jesus did on the hill at Golgotha. You cannot bear your cross and pick up that cross and face yourself if you won't. And many people won't. So that's the misnomer that everybody thinks Pluto's this great transformer. You have a self, and God gave you choice in this lifetime. It's a power, but it's also a curse. If your nature is to be inclined to lesser character. This pure degree is beneficial. It is the mark of the surgeon who rids the body of poison or cancer. It's the alchemical process that happens when you open yourself up honestly and look at yourself and decide to be a better person and live in better relationships. But Pluto's a very powerful, it's tiny compared to the sun. But during this month, and especially this end, when things are very caustic and hot, as I explained, with the aggravation and rubbing off of Uranus and Taurus to your the Sun, Mercury, Jupiter, and Chiron in Aries, with Neptune having Saturn, which is very uncomfortable there, and Neptune's ruler, Neptune being in its dignity in Pisces. So there's These, like as I explained yesterday, are physical, they're mental, and they're emotional energies. And this ingression of Pluto into Aquarius, which is the sign of brotherhood, is going to upend. There's going to be a ton of social unrest. Pure Pluto, however, like I said, is that dignified soul that has burned the dross off of all the evil and the sin, has decided not to become an alcoholic, not to use other people, not to try to dominate and control, not to try to take grandchildren when from your own children. And the dysfunction in families, I explained yesterday when I talked to you a little bit, Virgo and Cancers are going to encounter this. And there's definitely a cause if there's neglect and abuse involved, but that is the domain and realm of Pluto. All things in the underworld. And when the bride of Pluto is in Leo, this is very heady and it's very oneself, full of oneself. For my astrology students, we've talked a lot about Sun and Pluto. I'm going to go into a little bit of that with you today because that is the matter. If you are born with your Sun opposite Pluto, square Pluto, and in conjunction to Pluto, this is a dilemma. And this is you coming face to face with your ego and to your own demise, by the way, at these configurations that I just mentioned. Pure Pluto, however, I have a dear son-in-law who has Pluto in dignity and Mars in dignity in the house of Scorpio, which is high dignity. And this is a soul that has evolved in past lives, if you believe in such thing, to be able to conquer those Plutonian hells and evils in the world. So again, a good psychotherapist, a psychiatrist, a surgeon, ridding the body of cancers and poisons and all those Pluto things that I explained to you in last week's video, which I'll link below so that you can check that out if you've missed it. So I also want you to know that what is going to come to the fore are 8th house matters. And also 11th house matters, which have to do with societal causes, hopes, dreams, communities, places you belong in, your civilization in this here and now. 8th house, in the derivative house system, the 8th house is the second house from the 7th house. And the 7th house is where we meet and get married, where we form partnerships and businesses. The 8th house is the secret life that you live behind the closed doors in the privacy of your marriage and in the privacy of your family once you've left home. This is the house where you'll have legacy, where it's other people's money. It's the house of inheritance. It's the house of taxes. It's the most personal part of one's relationship and what couples do behind closed doors. It's a pretty juicy house. So with Pluto entering this realm, this is totally about relationships. So there will be ownership problems and interpersonal struggling. Pluto has a tendency, especially with Lilith, to want to control others. And this is deadly obsession. This is stalking energy. Pluto can set you free, but you have to rid yourself of this population and these people, these circumstances and situations in which you're involved in these dark Pluto energies. Do you find yourself wrestling and struggling every day over in a debased, destructive relationship? If you are going to need to ask yourself why, because things can get very violent and brutal interpersonally with this signature. There will be, this can destroy relationships. A healthy, honest relationship isn't based on power, control, and manipulation, but that is the realm of Pluto and Lilith. Pluto's power can feel like quicksand, and it's like black poison or cesspools of grief. And depending on which side of the dynamic of the interpersonal relating where this is going on, it ultimately ends up in loss. Pluto is a death planet. Saturn is a death planet. we're going to see some catastrophic water deaths this next 2.5 years because of Saturn's placement. But if you're in the dynamic of the Pluto situation where you're playing the victim, or you are the victim of a very controlling, powerful other, this can be a very sorrowful time and you're going to need help. I encourage you never to be afraid of going to talk to someone and getting to that point in therapy where you can be open enough and honest enough about your part in these troubled relationships. Pluto and Lilith show trouble. And Mars right now is the aggression and the warrior. It's in a good dignity. Mars is very successful and ambitious and achievement driven. But negative Mars, where it's going to be when it ingresses into Cancer, is a manipulator, a con artist, and it's very cunning. So we've got a lot of things that we need to look at. And if you're the person who's always looking at the other person in the relationship, my nasty daughter-in-law, and she doesn't take care of my grandchildren, or this moment in time to give Pluto its dignity and to release yourself and purge yourself of these manipulative, controlling ideas. Are you the one gossiping? Are you shaming other family members and talking about them and words getting back and causing unrest in the family? Because that's what Lilith would do. That's what Pluto would do. And that's what Mars in Cancer would do. Remember that Mars in Cancer works behind the scenes. And in good dignity, it's a different story. But its negative connotations are the same thing with Pluto being underground and Lilith being underground. It's backhanded, it's backstabbing, it's cheating, lying, stealing, killing, raping, pillaging, and it's human trafficking, and it's all ills. Anything that you're doing that's detrimental. And ultimately, these relationships that are Plutonian, and it's masochism and sadism, it's sadomasochism. And if you have components of that in your relationship, the loss that you'll encounter is indeed to your health and to your happiness. So it's hard to offer readings. I remember actually crying when I saw the January before COVID hit America. I knew there was some kind of unrest coming, and I even mentioned the word masks before that was a thing. So I'm feeling, as an intuitive advanced astrologer, there's a kind of a mournful tone to this. Mars, you see, is putting his domain and soaking his rays and energy of that fighting potential and action potential into Jupiter, the Sun, Mercury, and Chiron. Now, what can happen if you get humble enough and make your sun tiny like it is in the symbol that is Pluto? That making your sun tiny indeed means taking a look at your ego. Now, we all have an ego. Your ego is told in astrology by your sun and its sign and placements and aspects. I teach astrology. If this is interesting to you, I'd be happy to show you. I have my school set up, and there's 10 lessons in each learning module. There are 4 entirely, and there's a 5th star module, which is very, very interesting and can give you the ability to give really good readings. Those you can find on my website, www.threekeysastrology.com. So this is serious, and I hope you can feel during this video the gravity that is Pluto. So the sun and ego, your personality is derived of an id, an ego, and a superego. The id is what you need for survival. And it is kind of a depraved caveman kind of self that you have. And it is the way we act when we're afraid, or when couples fight over property and tug and pull at each other about what they're used to having and what they're going to have to go without now should they separate. It is partnerships, a business that dissolves, and one partner towering over the other. Excuse me. We're going to see a lot of that, especially in the legal profession. as one partner tries to usurp the power of the other. So the self becoming, maturity doesn't usually happen for males till after the first Saturn return around 32 to 34 years of age. Happens a little earlier for females, but there's not a concise set time and date. There's a lot of factors that we astrologers study, especially those of us that have some psychological training. So the sun, an ego is necessary to have a self. The superego is kind of what we that are evolved souls want. It's everyone's highest potential. It's indeed your conscience. And so that's how that cross you bear to that half moon, your feelings, to the sun, yourself, and you becoming a better person, getting closer to God and godliness, is the symbol of Pluto in its ascension, in its dignity, in its highest cause. And it is about godliness, or it's about being a hellish person. The energy, like I told you yesterday, is very fast paced right now. So the potential for impulsivity and compulsions is high with all these planets in aggravated positions to each other. And I want you to be very careful. Comment below if you know where your Pluto is. This is a generational planet, so it stays for a long time. I have a private Facebook group that you're invited to. There's qualifying questions because I want to keep it nice and healthy like it's been since I opened it. There are a quality of people in that group, and I want to keep it that way, not turn it into a hypochondria astrology or anything that's warlock and witch-like. So comment below. The majority of the people in my Facebook group are Pluto and Scorpio. And this is a pretty delicious place because Pluto's in dignity here. And it is the reason why our society is outing creeps like Jeff Epstein and Monvese, the owner of the network station, and Charlie Rose, and all these creepy people that use their power to a detriment. So the Pluto and Scorpio generation is pretty cool. You guys are around your late 30s, early 40s, and you've had enough of enough. And you, unlike the sign before you, are interested in digging into those criminal minds. And that's why we have movies that are so profound on television now, because of that Pluto and Scorpio generation. They've come into their own. They're adults. They've actualized their sun, their full potential, their egos, which are necessary. Ego's bad when it's malaligned and self-consuming. And that is someone, the egomaniac or the megalomaniac, or someone who's selfish. Ego in and of itself is necessary for human development. It is what makes you individuate and become yourself. So this nice time, and if you don't get those readings from me, you can do a little introspection and take a look at your sun and compare it to your Pluto. This is where I'm godly and good. And then this is where I'm dark and sneaky, or dark and debased, or dark and depraved, or what part of me is finding thrill and pleasure in things that I know harm other people and in things that are dishonest. So that's, I hope you enjoy that and look at the symbology and astrology. It's pretty interesting. Maybe I'll make a video on it. It's so interesting I teach it in my classes. So let's talk about the week ahead. So the two biggest events are Mars in Cancer. Now, we just had Saturn going in Pisces. So we've got two malefic planets and two water signs. Again, this repeats that emotionality is going to be caustic. People are going to be high in emotion. And I'm going to talk to you about a day in particular at the end of this forecast that happens to be, I think it's Tuesday. Yeah, it is. Tuesday the 28th is a day to be aware of being on quite the emotional roller coaster. Now, we have flavors of this again on Thursday, but I'll talk to you about Monday and Wednesday look like a little mixed bag. I'm going to give you the caveat of what to avoid, but those days are pretty good. But all in all, we're going to see news we don't want to see, wish we didn't see, and hopefully you're going to keep yourself away from situations that are dark or have that potential. Those of you that work to fight evil are going to have your hands full. And those of you that are working in mental health professions are also going to be booked solid. So on March 25th, Mars ingresses in early in the morning into Cancer. And he isn't happy there. And he's in a conflict with all those planets are in Aries. So he belongs in Aries, but he's in Cancer. So that's like, you need to defend yourself, but your weapons are at someone else's house. Or you have to get up and go to work, but you don't have a car. Something like that. That's how inept Mars in Cancer is. He belongs. He's giving his power to the Sun, to Mercury, to Chiron, and to Jupiter. But he's not comfortable where he's at. It's a fire planet and a water sign. And Cancers are emotional. Pisces are emotional. Having malefics in those signs indeed can be people. That's why you come and get astrology readings. These can be people. So in this case, this is male entities. Saturn is a grandfather energy, but it can also be a dad energy. So there can be difficulty with dad, or dad having some urinary problems or prostate problems. This can be the death of fathers. This is death by drowning. That's why I said there will be water catastrophes. Mars in Cancer, again, is a male entity. And this is a male in conflict with women in some way. And he's got mommy issues. It can be that Oedipal son whose mother won't let him go, who wants him to stay at home forever. And those big men babies never make good partners. And so that's kind of energy that's going on when Mars goes into Cancer. Now on the 25th, we have not only those 4 planetary influences of the Sun and the Moon being in Taurus, Uranus is in Taurus. That already is a volatile and quick to flare kind of temperament on the 25th. So, and we've got Mercury in Aries, which is great with the Sun for ambition, and those of you college students, anybody taking courses. And then it's amplified by Jupiter in Aries. So it can be self-aggrandizement. It can be people pompous and full of themselves and thinking, I am all that and a bag of chips. But nobody is, so try to ignore them. There's a lot of arrogance in the forecast ahead for this week as well. And isn't that just the dominion again of Pluto, when you think you're superior to someone else, and so you've got the right to crowd their space, to invade their privacy, to try to control them. All domains of Pluto and its problems. We have on the 25th a brutal configuration that is Mars in an in conjunction to Pluto. When Mars and Pluto tangle in uncompromising ways, you can picture 2 convicts, each loaded with all the weapons they own, out to do damage. So, and then we've got Mars squaring the Sun on this day, and this happens through the end of the month. That is another reason, if we don't need any more, and we sure don't, because things are difficult enough. And that's really, that's warring, flat out fighting. And so there's this is a distortion of the ego. And that is when we say that people are egomaniacs. And this is high pride. It's arrogant, it's pompous, it's know-it-all energy, it's ugly. And I'm asking you, especially if you're a Scorpio, especially if you're Cancer, Aries, Libra, and Capricorn, but all of us are going to face this pureness of Pluto wanting us to rid ourselves. It's Lenten, and I'm a Catholic, and this is a really good time of the year for self-examination. And Pluto's gold, when you're in the crucible of life and you're burning the dross of all the filth and the dirt and the tar and the mud and all blackness, you can end up with gold, which is the core of the sun. It is indeed the mineral of gold that ends up being the purification where the punishments of hell are burning sin off. So you have to let it go. Purging is really good. So that's Saturday, March the 25th. On Sunday the 26th, we have the sun and moon are in a really nice harmony. Now, there are those of us that have been through the trenches, have gone to hell. We've come out of hell. Somebody has reached a hand down to pull us up and get us out, and we know how to choose good partners and live in healthy relationships, to be honest, to be vulnerable, and not to manipulate and control. The thing, I think one of the major lessons that are happening now is that there's a saying, let it go and see where it goes. And this is indeed so true. When you think you should rush in and save the day because of your own agenda, ideas, calculations, and cunning, such as I mentioned earlier, a mother-in-law bad-mouthing a daughter-in-law, or a father-in-law emasculating his son-in-law, or a father doing that to his own sons. The thing is, and I've said this many times on this channel, we don't learn anything when everything is glorious and good. That was another gift God gave us. He gives us a choice. You have many to make. He gives you those choices on a good foundation so that you know what the right thing to do is. And that's the gift that's in this crucible that is Pluto at 0 degrees. So it is indeed when we fall down, make mistakes, do the wrong thing, say the wrong thing, get ourselves in trouble. That's when character is built. And Pluto will build you some character. He will also build you a reputation if you decide to dance with him in Black Moon Lilith. So come Sunday, for those of us that are evolved, matured, purged, cleansed, baptized, living in the light, Sunday is very sweet. The sun sextiling the moon is those couples that are bonded, unbreakable. This is the holiness that's in a wedding band. Sun sextile Pluto is an infallible energy of cooperation. And so there are people that never wrestle each other in relationships. There's a respect and an honesty about what each other is giving each other. The sun is a masculine force and the moon is a feminine force. And it's the unity that is what God made man and woman to be to each other in a holy union. So we love the sun sextiling the moon, and that's Sunday the 26th is very sweet. However, Pisces and Gemini need to be aware, a little less for Virgo and Sag, but you're still in the crosshairs. Later on in the day, the moon is going to square Saturn, and this is painful. And this is when you're feeling neglected and abandoned. Gemini and Pisces most especially. This is hard. This can be losing mothers and grandmothers. This is a very hard energy of feeling like your emotions and your emotional needs are unmet. So for all of you that are listening, be really tender on Sunday, especially to the Gemini and Pisces population, and again, Virgos and Sag. But this energy is for all of us. We all share the moon, no matter where she is in the sky, the same way we all share the sun wherever he is in the sky. And it's very important each month that you ask for and harness the power of the sun. The sun in Aries is self-sufficient. It's very independent. It's got high ambition. It's very energetic. It's very athletic. So if you tap into the gold that is the sun in Aries and refuse to be in emotional struggles, contests, and manipulations, you'll do well. And that's my advice for that. Now wait a minute, Sunday the 26th. Yes, I did that already. Let's go to Monday the 27th. So there's something really good in Pluto and the moon on Monday the 27th. And remember that I told you in last week's video, we also have major points of fate occurring for the whole world. And fate won't wait. Fate is indeed destiny. And while God gave us lots of choices, he also created us where there's some things we have no choice in, like birth and death. Those magical realms that belong to God of pure creation are things mankind can never manipulate, no matter how much he tries, and is messing with Black Moon Lilith and the devil when he does try to manipulate pure nature, such as creating babies in wombs that are artificial and not needing mommies anymore. and that kind of creepy stuff is going on, and we're going to see a lot of creepy medical, technological advancements for evil. And that's a sad part of this technology and the automation taking over human potentials. It's happening. So on Monday the 27th, the moon is in harmony to Pluto, and this is very emotionally powerful. This could be you saying, I listened to the video, I'm in tune with astrology, I teach astrology, I've had a consultation, and I do realize that I am involved with a boss that's just wearing me down. I have colds, I get flus, I'm sick every day, it's impossible to please people. On Monday the 27th, you can be in a relationship that's abusive. You can be in a relationship with tyrannical other people. And if that's the case, Monday the 27th, you could really come to say, I'm going to call someone. I'm going to make a move. The moon is home. The moon is your private, secret self that needs to be nourished, comforted, and to feel secure. So that's a big, good thing also. The moon is in a sextile to Jupiter. And this is big plans, house improvement, home improvement, expansion, building on, making something bigger for the public. This is very, very good and beneficial to the public. This is philanthropic energy and really good. However, at 9:30 at night on the 27th of March, the moon's in a compromising position to Neptune. And this, again, is when you're feeling emotionally starved, when your needs aren't met, feeling very needy, feeling lonely, feeling nostalgic, or encountering being involved with people who spin wool. And that is a cliche for not telling the truth. Again, this especially is going to be a warning to Gemini and Pisces. So be on alert, and hopefully you're in bed sleeping and peaceful that time. In order to cure this, again, it comes down to taking measure of the relationships you're involved in. If you're involved with someone who continually betrays you and insists upon lying and can't help themselves, that's their problem. And you're not God. You didn't make these people. And if they want to live their lives that way and it has somehow infected you, set yourself free. There are so many nice people on this earth that don't behave that way. So please come and get a reading if you have any configurations of the sun with Neptune, the moon with Neptune, Mercury with Neptune, which is the liar's signature, and a lot of 12th house matters. I'll help you. I taught an astrology and remedy class, and I've studied many modalities of healing since I was 18 years old. I'm almost 61, and there are cures, and there's a better way to live. On Tuesday the 28th, I told you this can be quite the emotional roller coaster, and it can stem from some incident that happens the night before around 9:30 at night, where there's betrayal and deception, and where you're feeling like your needs are unmet and that things are futile. It's actually a grief signature as well. So on Tuesday the 28th, which I believe is one of the hardest days at the end of this month, the moon is going to be in Cancer, which is squaring the Sun, Chiron, Mercury, and Jupiter. So it can be quite the emotional roller coaster in your personal relationships. You can be remembering old hurts, bringing up things as you lick your wounds and decide to engage in suffering and feeling sorry for yourself. It's also going to bleed and rip open those wounds that haven't been healed yet, and you can feel very unloved. That's a pretty hard thing to do because the moon is in conjunction to Pluto. This is not a very nice configuration. This is an agitation and an unrest and a feeling of neglect and being misunderstood and not ever being validated. The moon is going to be conjunct Mars. Now, this can be positive for healing emotional wounds, but it's also pretty feisty, and it's quick to anger, and it wants to fight. Because this is most especially, listen to me, Cancers. I'm a Cancer rising. So Cancers, Capricorns, Aries, and Libra, watch out for Tuesday. But really, all of us have to be on guard. The other thing is, men and women will not be seeing eye to eye and will not get along, and mommies and daddies will want to fight, and husbands and wives will want to fight, and we never like it. It's not like the sweetness that was Sunday. So if you're lucky enough to be in a relationship, you can say to the other person, let's just agree to disagree. You stay in your corner, I'll stay in my corner. I'll try to come and meet you in the middle because you're going to need to. Tuesday the 28th. There's a really nice configuration that's a saving grace between all of this other turmoil that's very emotionally roller coastery. I know that's not a word, but it works. You know what I mean. We've got the moon in harmony to Saturn, and that is that emotional intelligence of maturity, because Saturn's a mature planet. He's old age, and the moon is your emotional body. When these two are in harmony to each other, it's in recognizing that someone's a little bit off the hinges. Maybe you have a hyperactive grandchild. Maybe you've got a husband that's very upset by a tyrannical boss, and he's coming home and taking it all out on the family. Then this displaced aggression, which is indeed what Mars in Cancer is like. And when the moon is there with that, that's not so good. Like I said, moon conjunct Mars can be sweet in some aspects, but this one's difficult. So stay grounded. Those of you that are listening to this, be the force that is the calm that says, all right, let's look at us. Look what we're doing. We're fighting with each other. We're supposed to love each other. So watch out for that Tuesday. On the 29th, Wednesday, I really like this day. And it's a mixed bag. The moon is in harmony to Venus, and this is a very, very loving energy, high understanding. It's high compassion, and it's giving people their value, making people feel validated, respected, adored, wanted. This is wonderful. The moon is also in a sextile to Uranus, which is a pretty exciting thing too. This is the energy that is surprise parties, and it's surprise from family coming from out of town, or your mom shows up with dinner for everybody and you don't have to cook that night. It's really goodness. And then later on in the day, though, Wednesday, remember I told you there's quite the signature for arrogance and people being full of themselves, and that comes into play. So if you already know that type of person who's overly gregarious and always Mr. Exaggerator and Mr. Braggart or Miss Braggart, be on the lookout for them, because they are going to be blabbing about how great they are until you want to plug your ears, and I encourage you to do that. Get some earplugs, put on some earphones, and walk away from anybody that is that full of themselves. Now we come to the 30th, the second to the last day of the month on Thursday. And this, again, has some really sweet energy, but I would call it's going to be sweet for you working independently, I think. You'll be able to get a lot done, but it's good independent work. So it's something that you can do, a task that you can do alone. Teamwork is going to be problematic because the moon's squaring Mercury, and that again can be people really wrestling around with saying one thing but really feeling another thing, or telling something that's not aligned to the truth. And so it can be mental and emotional conflict within oneself. But then we've got, this is the juicy stuff that I think that we writers and astrologers, people who like to work independently on our own and enjoy. And so this is Moon trining Neptune, and this is wonderful for creatives and people that are making art, or you're in the painting studio or the pottery studio or a music studio. This is excellent for actors, getting into character and getting involved in the imaginative realm and all kinds of, this is a great day for stories. Make sure you're giving your children stories of your family and teaching them about what their family members did, so that tradition can be carried, because Neptune's nostalgic and the moon is as well. The Mars in harmony to Saturn is you being able to get finished those things that you need to do that maybe you've been procrastinating on. So work on those. But at 6 o'clock at night, there's some unrest in interpersonal relationships, and the market will be unpredictable. This is not a good day to spend money or to risk your monies if you're the gambling type or you're playing the market. The moon is also opposite Pluto, and that hurts. That's painful. And that is when things can really get out of control and turn into abuse within relationships. This is also not so good for the public, and for those countries that are warring, there's going to be a lot of death. And that's going to, around 6 o'clock at night, things start to go awry. The moon is also in conjunct Saturn, which is another death planet. So those countries that are warring, or if you're involved in a relationship that fights more than it loves, be careful. Find someplace else to go away from the tyrant in your life. The very last day of the month can be very sweet for cooperation and interpersonal relating. The moon and sun are in harmony again, and this happens around 4:30 in the afternoon. So again, I just want to emphasize that when you take a look, when you listen to this video and have thoughts about things and times and these things beyond our own homes and our little bubbles that we all live in that go on in the world, when you think about all this stuff again, reflect on and think about what I've taught you. There's a wonderful astrologer that's no longer alive named Donna Cunningham. I own all of her books, and she's written books on the moon, and then she's written a really beautiful book on Pluto. And so again, think of the sun as gold and godliness and life-giving. I've told you in other videos that within 8 minutes, should the sun go out, the population on planet Earth would die. So the power of the sun is good. That's the power of God. It's the power of a father in a family. That's the power of pure masculine energy that's beneficial and providing and loving and caring. Pluto, while he can be the great transformer, he's going to annihilate and cause demolition in your life where you're doing the wrong thing. And he is that character that's cracking the whip and hurting you, and that tyrannical father that puts his son down, or that alcoholic father that's abusing everyone in the family. And remember, Pluto, the devil in disguise, does things dirty and behind the scenes and can smile in your face and stab you in the back. So Pluto, make no mistake, gets deeply involved. One of the key words for it is in intensity. And there's a palpable energy that you can feel. Have you ever gone to another country or anywhere and you got shivers up your back, or you could just feel something wasn't quite right? Pluto. So Pluto gets deeply involved. He's meddlesome. It's people and persons that are into your business that won't stop. He has an insatiable need, just like Black Moon Lilith does, to consume you. What you want, what you need, what you love, what you have, what you are. That's why Lilith is abortion. They literally steal your life, your breath, your happiness, your joy, your sunshine. And so keep thinking sunshine, happiness, health, vitality, my ego, myself becoming the best I can be. The closer I rise like the sun at noontime that I am to God, as opposed to when I'm ugly and brutal and violent and tyrannical and diseased and debauched and drunk and drugged. Pluto. So the dark side of life, compare and be honest about it. Maybe you can journal about it. Comment below if any of you have gone through, it's called the dark night of the soul, and it can happen, it will happen. Pluto invokes a crisis, and whenever you're where you shouldn't be, according to God's plan, that crisis will come. It's when you're ignoring infidelity in a relationship or a business partnership. Eventually, ultimately, it all blows to shreds. It's an atomic bomb, an annihilation of what you thought the truth was. And so I hope that you choose God, that you choose the sun, and let those Pluto experts, like I told you, that are psychotherapists that can help hand down a stick of heaven and pull you out of that hell that you've been in. reach out to a friend that's trustworthy or loving, or someone good in clergy. Be the sun. And the sun in Aries is productive. It's energetic, it's athletic, it's happy, it's joyful. It's Aries people are a lot of fun. And the power that is right now is really beneficial to you, Leo, and you, Sagittarius, as well. But we've got to sort out where we're uncomfortable. Life is not a field of flowers and sweet dreams. We're here to learn, to do better. And so I'm sorry for the somber tone of this, but Pluto is a force that needs to be brought up to the light. And the best way to do that is to be holy, to have reverence for God and the Holy Family, and for other people, to make sure that you're not engaged in any kind of relationship with anybody that's ill. And it's okay to keep a small bubble. It's okay. You don't need to have thousands of friends and be the queen on Facebook or whatever these young kids think is popularity. That's not true. To have a few really golden friendships and a nice, healthy family is one of God's promises. And so I leave you with this bit of a somber forecast. And I pray that all of you are doing well and healing. The potential for Pluto to burn off the darkness in you, and the darkness that you bring to other people is ultimately the goal that is rebirth and transformation, but it's not an automatic. And there are some people who really like the dark side, and there's some people who really like to do evil, and there are some people who love their drugs and their drink and the deception that they wield. But you don't have to partake. You don't have to play. You don't have to wrestle. You don't have to struggle. You can be free. I leave you with that, and I'll see you for the next forecast for April. Be well, be safe, and be smart. Bye.